Hi.
Here we go.
And we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome. It is Monday night, Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter. And my God, do we have a lot to talk about tonight?
We have a lot to talk about. I feel like I've been out of it for a really long time.
Well, that's what happens. If you miss a couple of days, then the next thing you know.
And I didn't miss anything. Like, I didn't miss a show, but I've just been driving and I feel like I've been on the road.
Well, you're finally back in your element. You're out of your element, Donnie.
So I met some Teamsters. We'll talk. I met some Teamsters at a truck car because now I have the camper. It has to get washed at a truck wash. So I had to go to a truck wash, which I've never been to before. It's a whole new world. Yes. In order to wash the camper, it doesn't fit in a car wash.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a process to that. Kind of
correct. It's a whole new world. And I accidentally cut in front of 3 trucks because I didn't know they were waiting in that line and I can't reverse yet. It's very precarious. And these guys were so nice. I went up and so then I tried to pay for their washes. And I'm talking, it would have been a lot because these are semis, but then I would have had to wait around. I felt so horrible, but I talked to them and I'm like, they were Teamsters anyway. Anywho, they let me in. I looked or they were terrified to watch me reverse the camper.
Yeah, they don't want to see a small mistake turn into a much bigger one.
Exactly. Like they took pity on me.
Yeah. So you were on retreat, basically.
I went to go take my camper on its very first maiden voyage. And it was a little scary. This is the first time I had to hook it up and unhook it and all of it. And then it was freezing where we went. And I woke up to snow in the morning, which was not really it was pretty.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, we had a great trip, but it was it was a good learning curve for me. I am very proud of myself. Like I really it was like really big girl stuff. Like I had to really manage some real big girl shit. That's what happened.
Well, I had to deal with my own personal issue this morning. It's been a very busy work day to say the least. But I got my first threat, like my first real threat. Like a voicemail, the whole nine.
Like from our work?
No. From
real estate?
Yeah, from real estate.
Oh my God. That's not good. Like in this, it's like who cares? But like why?
Yeah, but I'm in the deep red South. So I'm talking like the guy who's like, I know the sheriff, I've known him forever, and I'm gonna run your ass out of town.
Oh my God.
Okay. Try.
I just go very close. Like you really ought not be messing with people in some of those.
I didn't do anything. That's the thing.
Well, somebody thinks you did. I'm just saying.
Well, the fact is, the thing that I noticed was that I think we were like following each other on social media. And then the next thing I know, he like blocked me on social media. So what that tells me is that he's like a super Trumper, like I'm talking not like a person who supports, MAGA, the Trump agenda. I'm talking about a guy who fancies himself as his own king in his own little kingdom type of situation.
You find that in some of these towns.
Oh yeah, they do, but it's not a podunk town. It's not like that.
Doesn't matter. There's generations involved.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, he's multi-generation, 100%. And they have a lot of money. They have a lot of real estate. And so this is a guy who probably saw that I'm from the Northeast, that I've probably said some favorable things in terms of left politics that he doesn't want to hear. And that is probably what set him off, because there was no communication that existed where it would have driven him to do what he did.
Like why would those worlds collide? Why would the worlds of Peter collide?
Well, like I said, we were following each other.
You know what happens? A world with two Peters. You know what happened?
I don't know. The plate
that was like the worlds of George colliding.
Oh, you're killing independent George, I guess.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of killing one's worlds, look, we already know that corporate media is a dead. It's a dying entity. I don't think anybody at this point is even pretending that it's something that it isn't. But the fact of the matter is, Joy-Ann Reid is somebody who has been able to survive, if you will, on corporate media for a long time, despite her very egregious statements. People can say that, she in particular is an example of a DEI hire. Not that she wasn't educated, but that she specifically was able to hold her position at MSNBC for as long as she did, despite a slew of flaws, because she was a Black woman. But there are reasons to believe, as I would believe, and I'm sure you would as well, that despite all of those flaws, and they can claim that it had to do with ratings, I think one of the reasons that she got the boot is because she has, to her credit, spoken out in favor of Palestine.
Too little, too late from her. I don't know. She goes where the winds blow. And maybe in this particular case with Palestine, there was her conscience involved and whatever. But at the end of the day, they're revamping their whole thing because they're tanking. And so was it because of her stance on that? Maybe they looked at it and said, all right, we need to get rid of any potential threats to our Zion Nazi message. Maybe. But you know what? Those are a dying breed. So like, I'm not going to take up a collection. She has been shilling for the party for so long. And the fact that she happened to be right on this issue, while that is nice and welcome to the party, I feel like cumulatively it's been a net negative, but I feel that way about that entire channel. So it isn't just her, right? Like she's just part of it. I don't even, honestly, I've never watched her show. The only reason I even now know who she is because of like Tim Black or you telling me this happened, so I don't know who these people are, but they're really crappy at their jobs and they're just basically Democratic operatives. So basically what I'm sensing is the party is changing around and they're switching out their operatives for ones that are sworn allegiance to the Zion Nazis.
I would say that that's definitely a big part of it because she's not the only one who got the boot.
And I don't think she was great. That's what I'm saying. Like,
no, I totally understand.
Right,
I mean,
I'm not defending her.
No, but Ayman ultimately got the boot, even though he's a weekend guy. But he is a Muslim, and there is no question that he was not somebody who was breaking the bank, if you will, for the show. Joy-Ann Reid, after Rachel Maddow and Mika and Joe, was probably right there with the likes of Chris Hayes and Lawrence O'Donnell in terms of salary. So she was definitely a player on the network. No two ways about it.
Well, now, they're going to revamp when they're in the toilet. What are they? So, I mean, that first of all, there's a legitimate business decision that they have to make in terms of getting rid of high paid people with low rated shows. That's just a business decision. Now, whether or not they looked specifically for people that were in any way averse to their, message, that's also part of it. Like, I think all of these things are true.
For the most part, Rita, the information is actually public. There are certain things that you won't find necessarily, but for the most part, yeah, there's ways of finding out what they're being paid.
Oh, Rita, if there is a way to find out what these people are making, you would know more than us. Okay? So, yeah. You know that's my friend, right, Peter?
Yes. And so, of course, who replaces Joy Reid? Well, it's not one person, it's three people. It is Simone Sanders, shocker, another person who portrayed Bernie Sanders, Michael Steele, who was the head of the RNC, mind you, which, let's face it, the Democrats never, or the Democratic channel never wants you to think for a second that they don't feel much more comfortable with Republicans than they do with populists or progressives.
Oh, come on. It's a wide net. It's a very wide net. It just only extends to the right.
And if you think that that's...
Sorry,
yes, and if you think that that's the coup de grace, it's not. In fact, it actually gets worse. It turns out that the third member of this triumvirate that they are having replace Joy Reid is none other than Alicia Menendez, Senator Bob Menendez's daughter. Because why not? Because why not? And if anything, I would put a gold bar right down on the table as soon as she sits down, just to remind people that this is all about, it is all about bribery in many ways.
I know nothing about Menendez's daughter. You know what I mean? Like, I have no idea anything about her or her. Like, I didn't even know she had a show. I don't know who she is. I know who he is, and he and his wife are filthy criminals. I know that. Or at least so they've been found. Now, how that affects the daughter or what her involvement is, I have no idea. Just like I don't know Joy Reid's credentials. She might be a very qualified journalist. I don't know that she's a DEI hire. I just know that she's an operative for the Democratic Party. I would say, I don't know these people's credentials.
Now, the reason why I mentioned DEI when it comes to Joy Reid, and again, Joy Reid is Harvard educated. You know, she's not
exactly. I don't know what her right. I don't know that she's DEI hired. I have no idea.
The reason I mentioned that is because for years she has been able to skate on certain statements that would otherwise get people completely kicked off of the air. They would never be able to recover. They would never get a position anywhere near something like this ever again.
We suspect.
And
we suspect, and you are allocating that to race.
I think that because it more or less has to do with the way MSNBC, you know, whether it's Comcast, if you're looking at just the overarching network in terms of how they conduct business, people were getting booted left and right for a handful of years, especially during Trump's first term, because everyone at that point got woke and everybody had to, you know, this is the after effects in many ways of Harvey Weinstein and a lot of things that came as a result of that. And so this to me really stood out because Joy Reid got caught with her hand in the cookie jar. She had been exposed through the Wayback Machine that she used to write really homophobic and anti-white blog posts and things of that nature. And so this was her response. I remember.
And it's like, but here's my question. Why are we bringing this up again?
We're bringing this up because when people are questioning, oh, did she get fired because of this? Or did she get fired because of that? The truth is that there was an opportunity at the height of when it was convenient to let people go, and they chose not to.
Okay, but here's the thing. You were making so many presumptions. A lot of things are done in the aggregate. And at the end of the day, like it might be that, it might be a lot of things. It's an aggregate. But at the end of the day, it's money. And so if she were profitable, she'd be staying.
I definitely agree.
All there is to
I have no doubt.
Whatever their reasoning is, it's based on their money.
So as Doug Grinbergs points out, Newsweek reports Reid was one of MSNBC's highest paid hosts, earning $3 million per year for hosting the Washington Free Beacon. And of course, say what you want, but it's the Washington Free Beacon. It's a conservative network. They are going to get the information because the liberal networks will not release that information. Because and the same would apply if somebody wanted to know what Sean Hannity's exact salary is that he's making. It's the same thing.
But to me, that's irrelevant. Like the amount is irrelevant other than what it is to their bottom line.
Well,
I don't care how much money she makes, but they're cutting her because she makes more money and they could probably have like, you know, a couple shows or at least 2 shows for the cost of hers. So they're right now in a position where they're a dying empire and they're doing what they need to do to cut costs. So yeah, you're going to cut people that are your highest paid people. That's how businesses work.
Sure.
And then you replace it with people that you have to pay less. Hello.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. In fact, I would argue that this is kind of like poetic justice in a way.
Well,
For
my
someone
issue,
who's been shilling for capital for a really long time. To get
100%.
fired for capital reasons.
Well, my biggest issue with Joy is that she's just a complete shill. Like that's always been the issue. And she absolutely, she does like to do race baiting. That is part of her shtick. And it does not serve to advance anything. On the one hand, you can talk about race the way that Nina Turner talks about race. But
you mean when she calls for Black Jesus?
But again, Joy has no intention of solving problems. Her intention is to facilitate a more luxurious and profitable career. And if she feels that that's the way to basically follow the Al Sharpton playbook, Al Sharpton's still employed by MSNBC. We'll see how much longer that lasts.
Well, it depends on how much he's paid versus how much his ratings are. Again, they only are concerned with their bottom line. That is it. There is no other thing. So the ones who are profitable stay, the ones who are not leave. It's trimming the fat.
So I always felt that this should have been the end of the road for Joyanne Reid. It wasn't, but let's just remind everybody of what she was actually able to get away with and how badly somebody could actually lie to the camera.
Four-star general with all of the gravitas that you described that Lloyd Austin has. He walks onto the TV and I sit up a little straighter because he has such great gravitas. Replacing him with a dude from Weekend Fox who with this history, it embarrasses me as an American. And we shall see, because I don't trust our United States Senate, our Republican-controlled Senate, to say no.
To begin our final sprint, having arrived at that point in the election season where basically we on this side of the TV screen have said all we can. We've laid out the stakes in this crucial election, where one side stands for freedom while the other meets the textbook definition of fascism.
So what would you call Biden and Harris facilitating a genocide? What do you call that?
It's pretty fascist to me. It's up there. I mean, genocide is definitely in the characteristics. I believe there's like 12 or 14 characteristics of fascism. I'm pretty sure that ethnic cleansing is one of those.
Also,
ethnic cleansing.
Also, the fact that she wanted to play the race card on behalf of Lloyd Austin. The level of depravity.
Can you change this shot? This is absolutely her worst look ever.
Namely,
let's go to the better hair.
Far-right dictatorial regime like Hitler's Germany or Franco's Spain or Mussolini's Italy, but also white-ruled South Africa before Mandela and the black majority took control, or Vladimir Putin's Russia, Viktor Orban's Hungary, or Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela today, that suppresses the rights of women and minorities, uses the military to execute the whims of a strongman dictator, and controls and suppresses the press, education, the arts, rewrites history to suit a favored
Are you
and
highlighting her
racial
propaganda
class
mouthpieceness?
and foments.
I know you do a lot of public speaking.
At least that's better.
That has to do with kind of women operating in the workplace.
Yes.
And when I saw during the debate, Warren was quite cool about it. She was like, Bernie's my friend. I'm not going to get into that here. But then afterward, she rolled up on him, was like, no, we're not going to handshake now. You called me a liar.
Yes.
That felt to me like a lot of the ways that women have to operate and work in the professional environment where you can't be angry.
That is infuriating. Please make it stop. That was so infuriating. So now she's playing the woman card, because here's the thing. That is a legitimate thing that she's saying. But to in any way equate what she's saying to that snake and what she did to Bernie is so off the wall to me.
Just make the sound.
Because what she's doing is it reduces the credibility of legitimate issues that women in the workplace have. And there are many. I've had that. I know other peers of mine have had that. That's a real thing. And the fact that she would throw this, this Liz Warren had to deal with that in the workplace. Get the
And where
fuck
do you
out of
think-
here with that. Like, are you kidding me?
And where do you think it started from? It all started from Hillary Clinton calling Bernie a sexist and everybody running with it because she didn't have anything.
It completely belies all facts to the contrary. Okay. This is the snake that he actually suggested that she should run. And she was too chicken shit to run against Hillary. And so instead of doing so, and so he did. So then for her to turn around and say that he somehow suggested that a woman couldn't be president is absurd. That's what I think. And so this is annoying right now to me.
Or you're the bad
most of us want to deal with it afterwards instead of just going right for it. The fact that Elizabeth Warren not only came over, she squared her body. He's giving her the cold shoulder. He doesn't turn to her. She says, I think you just called me a liar on national TV. If you go back to Wienergate, you go back to all of these political.
So how much you want to bet this woman sits on the board of Moms Demand Action or some shit like that?
Yeah, she looks like that. Or she sells Mary Kay.
But whatever it is, for anybody out there who thinks they're a body language expert, I wouldn't be taking advice from this person. But again, this is propaganda. It's all
completely. This is crazy.
Let's see if there's any.
All right, but this is old.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's okay here.
I've spent a lot of time trying to make sense of these posts. I hired cybersecurity experts to see if somebody had manipulated my words or my former blog.
This is that.
And the reality is they have not been able to prove it. But here's what I know. I genuinely do not believe I wrote those hateful things.
Okay, see, now she's a liar. That's it, right? Right. I mean, she's just a flat out liar. But I guess unless there's a way to prove that, and again, at the time, they were still acting in their best interest because at the time they were making the decision still, again, based on profits. So at that time, she was still worth keeping.
Correct. I think you can't make a statement like this on national television and get away with it unless there's something that you are bringing to the table that is of considerable more value than dealing with the heat that came with her being able to get away with the statements she made on top of everything else. So when people are like, but Joy says this, Joy says that, she says it because she facilitates the corporate oligarchic message that MSDNC wants out there. And if you want to throw in some race hustling to go with it, then she'll do that too. It doesn't matter. And believe me, guys, for $3 million a year, plus the prestige that comes with it, being invited to all the right parties, making all the right connections, there's very little that too many people are going to not be willing to do in order to get that.
But see, to me, it's the fact that she's a shill for capital, and it really doesn't matter to me whether or not she played, like the woman card, the race card, those are all just the tools in the toolbox. At the end of the day, she's just an operative for them, right? Like that's just the things that are available at her disposal. Different operatives use different tools depending on what they have at their disposal. And at the end of the day, all they are is shills for capital.
Now, maybe, just maybe, the reason why Joy decided that she was going to make a statement pertaining to what was going on in Gaza is because maybe she knew that her time was limited, that she was going to get the axe, and that she simply decided, well, I'm going to go ahead and say what needs to be said. Maybe too little, too late, as you would allude to.
Oh, I've alluded.
But at least she did say it. So here's what she said.
These bombings are being done using our tax dollars. Perhaps we should ask some questions.
Well, she already threw that one out there, which was not
Ixnay
For
on the
example,
tax dollars.
How does bombing a densely populated land strip filled 50% with children constitute self-defense? How does bombing hospitals, churches, mosques, and UN schools constitute self-defense? Well, you say if Hamas fighters are hiding in the hospital using the civilians as human shields, okay, let's say they are. Are you arguing that flattening the hospital and killing newborns in their incubators and their moms in the NICU, cancer patients, someone with a broken leg, the doctors, nurses, and just the women and kids hiding in the hospital, that's not a war crime? Because you would be wrong.
Where was she on October 8th and 9th and 10th? Where was she talking? I'm just curious. I don't know. I don't know the answer to this. No. But was she propagating the babies in ovens and rapes? Was she one of the people that propagated and then kept propagating the rape story?
I can't speak to that. I never watched this stuff.
If anybody out there knows if she's one of the people that was propagating the rape story about from October 7th and that whole nonsense, put it in the chat. Because that will affect my opinion on this issue.
The amazing thing about Gaza is that I really haven't seen a situation where you had a prominent figure who was all in on Israel and then all of a sudden just completely turned it around and was supporting Palestine. Pretty much the lines were drawn almost immediately. You knew exactly where everyone stood.
Well, that's why I'm curious if she was just kind of quiet on that, or if she was one of the people that was proactively sitting there propelling propaganda about what happened. That's what I'm curious about. Like, how active was she in the weeks after October 7th? And then what's the timeline on her sort of like, come to Jesus moment on this?
Good point.
That's what I'd be curious about.
According to international law. But why don't the people in Gaza just turn over Hamas militants to the Israelis? Okay, how do you propose they do that? Hamas is the de facto government in Gaza, and they're the ones with the guns. The leaders of Hamas aren't even in Gaza. And if they were, if you were a teenager living in an open-air prison, getting bombed day and night by, let's say, Mexico, and Mexican police kicked in the door and raided your house anytime they wanted and turned off the water and cut off your food, what are you going to do? Side with them? Help them while you're dying? That's like asking why black folks don't help or trust the police. Okay, but after 9/11, we bombed Afghanistan in self-defense. Yeah, we did. And did that put an end to Al-Qaeda or get bin Laden? No, it did not. Because like Hamas, bin Laden wasn't in the country we were bombing. President Obama got him 10 years later in Pakistan using special forces and without bombing scores of kids to death. Bombing Afghanistan did buy us a 20-year occupation that got us more enemies in the Muslim world when we scooped people up on the battlefield and dragged them off to Gitmo. And when we threw in a gratuitous war against Iraq based on lies by a Bush administration that traded on our anger and our fear, the world rose up against us as we committed torture and tossed former Iraqi police and soldiers into makeshift gulags, and those prisoners later turned into ISIS. Oh, and the Taliban are back in control of Afghanistan. So again, what is the goal of mass bombing Gaza? Is it to find the people Hamas militants abducted on October 7? Okay. How? By flattening whatever shelter they're taking from the bombs? Don't you?
Early Saturday, an Israeli airstrike hit a school serving as a shelter in Gaza, killing at least 100 people and wounding nearly 50 others, according to Palestinian health authorities. On the same day as the strike, Vice President Kamala Harris condemned the loss of civilian life.
Wait, can we have a shout out to Metal? We haven't seen him in a while. Metal. Somebody asked me about you recently.
One of our favorite conservatives decides to make.
Where have you been, Metal?
But but at the same time, it's like Kamala makes a statement, but then immediately is like, we're going to give Israel everything it wants. So what's the point?
She doesn't know what she's saying. She's a friggin' just word salad generator.
The point is, we have watched too little, too late from too many people in too many places that should be speaking up on these issues. And Joy made a conscious decision career-wise that it was more important to make money than to be transparent. Joy is not stupid. She knows that Bernie Sanders was the best option, was going to make a real change that we desperately needed, and now we're stuck where we are. And trying to shame people is never going to work again. That's the great thing. I mean, as much as we had to listen to it from so many people for so long in 2017, 2018, etc. To even try it now, it just rings hollow. People don't care anymore. They're like, no, we know what the problem is, and you're not going to sell us empire, which is why, as you said, you think the Democratic Party is as dead as a doornail at this point.
think nationally that I do not think we're going to see another Democratic president. And with, and let me put like an asterisk, with this incarnation of the Democratic Party, this Hillary Clinton corporate part, this Democratic Party that we have right now, I do not think we will see another president out of them. That's just my opinion. I don't see it happening. I also don't think Pete Buttigieg is going to win in Michigan. And I don't think Kamala is going to win in California. And I do think there's still going to be bastion states and smaller areas that are going to have Democratic, people, but it's dying off. And so as the generations get older and die off, we're not seeing an increase in young people. They're not registering as Dems. I've said it before. So it's dying. And so, at a national level, I think this last election was extremely telling for a lot of reasons. They're done nationally. That's my gut. It's my gut. And I'm pretty clairvoyant. You've said so.
I think you definitely have been pretty accurate about a lot of these things. So that's why I'm not going to challenge you on it. I think we're kind of just watching it all happen in real time. And I think most people believe that they're living in a unique period of time, but we certainly are living in one very unique period of time. And the night is always darkest before the dawn.
That's your favorite. That's your favorite phrase.
Well, because everybody's so concerned about what's going on and stuff like that. Well, Elon Musk puts out his message today about how we're going to send out an email to every federal employee. And then finally Trump steps up and the administration steps up and says, yeah, don't follow that email. It's like, at some point you got to put the brakes on. And it's not that we don't need change. We certainly do. At the end of the day, the way that change is coming, it's coming at breakneck speed. And what's going to end up happening as a result is a lot of people that wanted change are now going to be reverting back to, let's just go back to where it was calm all over again. But nothing will change unless we have unity across worker lines. Now, even though we didn't have an opportunity to speak to you guys at great length on Saturday, we were part of the Workers Strike Back rally that was hosted by Due Dissonance. And we were
I saw that Chris was asking if we were going to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, that is the issue of our time. That is our fight. Our fight.
And I'm happy to see some of it because I didn't get to see that much. Like I heard some of it, but I didn't really get to see any. I don't know that there's anything to see when people are just talking. But I don't know like who spoke other than the few people I know of.
Well, there were other labor organizers that were speaking, but ultimately it did come down to the speeches of Kshama Sawant, Chris Hedges, and Jill Stein.
I would have liked to see Dr. West show up there.
Yeah, that would have been nice. So, hey, listen, you know what? We got to call a spade a spade. Jimmy Dore wasn't a part of this.
Why are we still talking about him?
I don't even think we're talking about it is that if he's such an advocate for this change and he supposedly is in with these guys, you would think that he would put his neck out there for this type of an event, but they don't.
Really, you would? You would really think that?
Why not?
I would think that you and I would know not that. I mean, you're being rhetorical, aren't you?
I thought you were going to slip there and say a bad word, but hey,
I'm not saying a bad word. I'm just saying you're asking a question that we know the answer to completely. So why are we bringing that up? But I would have liked to see Dr. West there. I'm hopeful that the reason he wasn't there had nothing to do with issues or political nonsense between him or Greens or any crap like that. I'm hopeful that that's not the issue. But this is
also one of the bigger reasons why when we talk about the stories that really matter in conjunction with something like Workers Strike Back, we talk about the primary issue that I have experienced with, again, I'm in very conservative America. You're in a part of the country where a lot of people who may not necessarily agree with certain agendas recognize how volatile our healthcare system is or always has been. And it's not a healthcare system. It's a for-profit health system. And
it's a slush fund.
And that's
it's a slush fund for people like, what was his name? Brian Thompson.
Sure. And that's why we must continue to talk about Luigi Mangione. And this story that—
Free Luigi.
Free Luigi. And he was just back in court. And who better to bring on to talk about this than the person who really is on the ground with his squad covering real
here.
Yes, with real news and the information that really matters, because the whole story of Luigi really blew up thanks to our good friend Jordan Chariton at Status Quo News. Welcome back, as always, to Generational Change.
Thank you.
Hey, Jordan, how are you?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
How's the baby? I know you had to get off to go deal with the baby.
How's the baby?
How's the baby?
The terrible twos are real, but she's doing wonderful. Thanks.
Yeah, Jordan, you have a daughter. It doesn't end with the twos. You. Oh no, friend.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if girls go through phases, but she's in a very clingy phase to me, which is
That's
nice. It's
sweet.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's sweet. So yeah, it's good to see you as always. Oh, and did you mail my book?
I did.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Okay, that was it. Peter, you may
I
continue.
marked it to what was her name? Bubba?
Bobby.
Bobby.
That's
Bobby.
my aunt. Yeah.
I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Thank you. She lives right near University of Tampa, which is
Mhm.
really kind of yeah. Anyway.
One of the more interesting developments that popped up on Friday that I'm sure you're well aware of is that Mangione's lawyer brought up the fact that Mayor Adams has been publicly discussing undisclosed evidence. This, I think, is a direct tie-in to the fact that basically anyone who's in the power structure wants absolutely no part whatsoever of this story becoming a big deal. They want to try to put Mangione away as quickly as possible. So when you make a deal with the devil, as Mayor Adams did with the Trump DOJ, to basically have a get out of jail free card and facilitate what they want in terms of maneuvering with ICE and, doing the deportations out of New York. Who's to suggest that there wasn't some ancillary additional components that were added in, such as we want to get this Mangione character the hell out of the news cycle as fast as possible. So what would you say is sort of the motivation here pertaining to whether it is Mayor Adams saying anything? And what would you say was the overall message that you took away from Mangione's day in court that took place on Friday?
Yeah, I think that there's a whole genre in terms of TV. I mean, Nancy Grace and a whole lot of attorneys, their careers were made off of OJ and this like made for TV crime stuff. And I feel like you're starting to see that with the Mangione case. You had a Discovery Channel documentary about it, then an HBO documentary about it, and I think the reason for that is the police and the government officials who want to elevate this case to terrorism need to make him a terrorist in the public eye. And I think that's why you saw Eric Adams, who, joined the SEAL Team 6 level buffoon of cops around Mangione on the perp walk when he was transported from Pennsylvania to New York. Then Eric Adams and one of the top NYPD detectives had to be in a documentary basically saying he's guilty, which, you're technically innocent till proven guilty. Well, if you're wealthy, you're innocent till proven guilty in this country. But I think that a big reason why his lawyer pointed that out today is, why does Eric Adams have access to evidence that the attorneys have not been given access to? I mean, Jen, you're an attorney. Why are they discussing evidence in an HBO documentary that his attorney has not? They haven't been handed it over. And I'm not a lawyer, but it does seem, this happened in December. There was a month delay that the prosecution and the defense agreed on. Why haven't they handed over everything? There's not a mountain of evidence that it would take 2 months to hand it over. So I think essentially what you're seeing with Adams, in this documentary and other documentaries, people don't feel terrorized by him. So they're using the public airwaves to basically make him into a monster. And that's also why, I don't know why they put a vest on him. It looked like a bulletproof vest.
Like Hannibal Lecter. They had him
Right.
looking like, well, why was Eric Adams involved in a perp walk? Why was that a
Right.
spectacle? All of this is ridiculous. It's almost like they're sort of trying to sabotage the case. It's like they don't. Here's what I predict, and this is what I've been saying from the beginning. I don't think that this is going to see a trial. Like, I don't think this trial is going to see. It's like there is no like. I don't see that happening. Now, whether or not there's a deal, whether or not something bad happens, which I really hope doesn't, I do not think that they want this to go to trial. Not in the same way about Diddy. Oh, like that's never going to trial. But this is one of those things that they'd prefer it not go to trial. So they're going to either prolong it as long as possible, sabotage it. They know that they're not going to be able to get an unbiased jury. And I wouldn't be surprised if somehow somebody's gunning for some sort of mistrial.
Well, I think that there's cascading interests. I think that the government, who, when I say the government, I mean, Adams, federal government, I don't think they want a long drawn out trial, because I think you're going to see crowds grow in favor of him. And they don't, there was only a couple dozen out on Friday. It was very, very cold. It was midday as well. But you had a couple dozen supporters out there. And I think that's going to grow once the actual trial starts. And the media doesn't cover the predatory for-profit health insurance industry. But if you have hundreds of people out there supporting him, and I would think that's not only in New York, I think you'd have, support rallies elsewhere. They can't ignore that. And they can't call them all bizarre, twisted cult members. As I covered earlier, Jake Tapper called his supporters twisted and bizarre, and CNN's legal contributor called it a cult.
Oh,
so,
look at the source, people.
I don't think the government officials want him out a trial, but I do think that the people who buy off the government officials, which would be the healthcare industry, I think they want a trial.
I don't think they want a trial.
Oh, I do.
You think they want? I don't think they want everybody talking about all their dirty laundry. The amount of stories of people that they don't want that simulated. That's one of the reasons I don't think they want this to go to trial.
I don't think they want them talking about it, but I also think they want an example set so nobody. Yeah.
Which is why I'm concerned for his safety.
Yeah, I think you could have an Epstein situation here. And I also think they want the death penalty, because they want, as much as they don't want their laundry and all these protests, that will be a moment in time, and then it will be over, and we'll go back to, business of screwing people in America. But I think they want an example of him being put to death, frankly, to kind of deter others.
It's the Hunger Games. It's the Hunger Games. They're making an example.
I got news for you. You're the lawyer, so correct me if I'm wrong. I do think Mangione's attorney is being smart by pointing out all the procedural issues, the fact that her client's being prejudiced, the fact that you have the mayor who's got his own problems and should not be mayor, revealing evidence that they haven't seen, because this is all setting up for an appeal. I think.
Wait, correct me if I'm wrong. She was a prosecutor or a public defender?
Public defender.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean,
she was a CNN contributor too.
Because either way, it's there's this incredible knowledge that you get from either side in these cases. Either way, no, she knows exactly what she's doing.
And she was also number 2 or 3 in the Southern District of New York, which is kind of other than the Department of Justice, that's the creme de la creme state justice agency. So she knows how all of this works. So I think, that between the pretrial publicity, between the procedural errors, shall we say, if some discovery has been withheld, and I also think, based on what we're seeing in Pennsylvania here, I don't know if you saw this, but his attorney in Pennsylvania, because he was arrested initially in Pennsylvania, put forth today a motion to dismiss the case in Pennsylvania. Thomas Dickey is the attorney. He says that Mangione was frisked and surrounded by officers who gave him no indication he was free to leave the McDonald's restaurant until after he was under unlawful detention for 17 minutes. So basically, the attorney is alleging that there was a 17-minute window. So that's separate from the New York case, but there's a lot of different things happening at once. But at the end of the day, I think the core thing going on right now is narrative setting.
Yeah.
Nobody really finds this guy to be a terrorist. That there's a lot of people who don't agree with what he did, but no, people aren't comparing him to Timothy McVeigh here or Osama bin Laden. And that's really the only way they're going to get him on terrorism, is to bias a jury before the trial starts. And I don't really think it's effective, because that's not what people think.
I just wanted David Hunter. So what is the likelihood of Luigi actually getting the death penalty? I think it's low, but who knows? That's the whole reason for the federal charge and the terrorism charge. New York does not have the death penalty, do they?
No.
Does New York? I didn't think so.
Nope.
So yeah, that's what I was thinking. So the only way he could get the death penalty, and by the way, federally, it's so uncommon. Like, it's so uncommon that happens. So it's a stretch. It's definitely a stretch. So anything having to do with the state case, he can't get the death penalty.
Well, it's like you said, they're trying to make an example of him. They want people to not only see that if you even attempt to come after our for-profit health system, that this is what you have coming for you. But I'm kind of the mind at this point that we really have reached the point of no return. I don't think there is going to be a point where we can put this back in the bag again. I think single-payer healthcare is inevitable. It's just a question of when we get it, because when I'm talking to successful conservative entrepreneurs and they think that single-payer healthcare is the solution, it's just a question of when. You can only bribe and buy off people for so long. And if, God forbid, anything happens to Luigi, it's going to be like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in the streets. Like, that's what's going to happen. If he gets X'd, that might set off the revolution as far as I'm concerned.
Well, his attorney also pointed out, Jen, maybe you would know better than I, she doesn't. It seems strange that he's being held in federal detention in a New York state jail, but under federal detainment when there hasn't been a federal indictment. There's been a complaint, there's been charges, but a grand jury has not brought back a federal indictment. So it's all kind of theater and smoke and mirrors, because when she goes to see him in jail, he's not shackled. He gets to move freely.
Of course, they're not scared of him.
Right. But, when bringing him into the court, like you said, it's like Hannibal Lecter. And obviously, in federal, being detained federally, it's much harder for her to visit him, see him before court, after court. So there's complaints about not having access to her client. But overall, I think that I just think the way they've gone about this is piss poor, because I think they've already biased. They've already influenced the jury. What they, meaning the prosecution, the government, but not the way they wanted it. I watched some of the HBO documentary, and maybe I'm biased. It just seemed over the top to me, and they left out a lot of his reasoning. They kind of just skimmed over, his stated reasoning. But the other thing with trying to pin him on terrorism, because again, Mangione's attorney, she said that the prosecutors haven't even handed over the so-called manifesto, which they haven't confirmed is his. But if that is submitted as evidence, I think that's evidence against terrorism, because he says, I chose to just do this guy because I didn't want to hurt any innocents. I don't know many terrorists that put in writing, I want to limit the amount of people I kill. The point of terrorism is to hurt, instill fear, and kill as many people as you can. So if that's submitted into evidence, the alleged manifesto, it hasn't been confirmed that it's him by his attorneys. I think that's actually counter to terrorism. And some lawyers have gone on TV and said it's over the top. And going over the top of the terrorism charge might hurt them on the lesser charges too.
That's why I don't think they want this to see a courtroom, because everything that he has put out is completely contrary to their terrorist narrative. And of course, those things are going to be evidence, right? So they can't avoid those. They're not going to be able to keep those things out of evidence. So how could they possibly paint him that way? I still don't think they're going to find an unbiased jury. I think they could paint him I think he could paint him as Hannibal Lecter, and I still think that they're not going to find him guilty. But that's just me.
We have like 125 people in the chat, and guys, if you haven't hit the like button already, please make sure that you do. The reason I highlight Mr. Lopez, we are going to put you on blast. The reason why I'm highlighting your comment is because you're the one person in the chat who thinks that there is no justification behind what has actually happened. Everybody else.
Why do you read his statement like that? I actually thought his statement meant no. His reasoning was that Brian Thompson was murderer.
No. That there's reasoning behind what I could be wrong, but what I'm
I
saying
think,
is that
clarify, Lopez. I think he meant that he was laughing because obviously his reason is that Thompson is a friggin' murderer.
look, when I caught your live stream for a few minutes earlier tonight, I happened to catch it when you pulled up the comment from that lady who was like, well, Elon is just trying to do this, that, and the other thing. And you're like, you cannot be this naive. But there are. The good news is that this is not like it was a few years ago. I think there's a lot less people that are completely in denial about the oligarchic system that we're living in today with elements of authoritarianism and, yes, fascism. You can't just completely ignore it anymore. It's too in your face. And even the ones that want to pretend that that's not the case, then you have your interviews, or I believe these are interviews covered from Status Coup the other day. And this is what people had to say pertaining to what's going on with Luigi.
Frame it as a bunch of like groupie girls for Luigi.
Fangirls, which I think is ridiculous. I know people who are in the courthouse today, and it's everyone. It's truly everyone.
Almost every single media person who's talked to me today has asked me, do I feel some sort of like moral, compromise from coming out to a murder trial? And to that I say, I'm not here for Luigi. I am taking it, the media is here, so I'm going to be here to talk to them about healthcare reform. And that appears to be what the initial murder was about. But you know what? They want us to protest peacefully. Then that's what I'm doing. You should actually report on that. Yeah, they've got blood on their own hands. So for them to be like coming out us and pointing their finger and saying like, oh, you support murder? I mean, look at your own news organizations. Like, look at who you get money from, okay? All these Congress people who are like, Congress people who are accusing us of being morally compromised. Where your stocks are in healthcare companies. You are voting against your constituents every single day for your own pockets.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was the people online who were commenting on his obviously attractive appearance, but I mean, can we see him right now? Are we looking at him right now? There's photos of him on that shirt over there. I can pull those up on his phone. Why would I stand out in 22-degree weather if this wasn't something that I cared about? This is something that I feel very, very deeply passionate about, because this is something that has personally affected me, personally affected my loved ones. Basically, every single, you cannot talk to an American that has not had an experience or does not personally know someone that has not had a terrible experience with their health insurance industry. It's a running joke, and it shouldn't be.
I'm learning a little bit more about how the media is covering just large-scale events like this and the interests at hand. And I'm noticing a lot of media here today, thankfully not your channel, are going to the supporters and they're saying, do you support Luigi? And, oh, there's all these girls out here. Have you seen these headlines where they're like, there's a lot of women at these protests? And apparently we got another one of these headlines today, and there's actually people of all ages and genders here, just trying to fight for healthcare. And we're getting some kind of headlines that are just nonsensical.
I like her. I've seen her on your show before.
Yeah, she was at the first court hearing in December.
Yeah,
and,
she's cool.
I'll tell you, I've been around groupies in my day.
She's not a groupie.
Most groupies won't show up in 30 mile per hour wind gusts, which was what was going on Friday. It was with the wind chill. It was like 20 degrees out, and it was midday on a Friday. But taking you behind the scenes. So I actually saw CNN's reporter there, and I was eavesdropping on his questioning. It's a little short, pudgy guy, Donnie something. And I mean, I heard him ask two people the same question. What do you think? He's alleged to have murdered someone. Do you support this? I mean, that they go in with that agenda and that framing. They're not interested. I'm 99% sure he didn't ask, do you have a personal, story dealing with the health insurance company? Your loved ones? What do you think of the state of the health insurance industry? What do you think of the reports that, Trump is going to cut Medicaid? Do you think the Democrats are doing enough? None of that. There was one agenda and one framing, which is not surprising. It's CNN. But honestly, the jury unfortunately, most of them are not watching Status Quo. A lot. It depends on the age, but most of them are not, unless they get a jury of all 60 plus, which is the cable news CNN demographic. Most of them are getting their news about this from social media, this and that. But it was very appalling to me to see the framing, not just by CNN. I saw a couple others. It's simply, do you support what he allegedly did? And from my perspective, there's dozens of people out there begging for health care. Some of them, are loud and proud. They're supporting Mangione, but a lot of them aren't out there wearing Luigi hats. They're just healthcare activists. But CNN and some of the other reports just kind of want to make it seem like a weird, twisted fan group, which I don't see that. I don't see that at all.
Okay, so here's my comment on this. I'm going to equate it to our campaign. We always had two campaigns going, right? There was the campaign to get money that was a national campaign. And then we had our campaign locally for votes. And at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is whether or not they can find 12 people to find him guilty. So all of that, putting that out there, that's great national stuff. But the majority of people that are seeing that are not in his jury pool. And so it really is only going to matter if they're going to be able to find 12 unbiased people. And like that girl was the other one, not the one the one before the last one was saying, you're not going to find somebody who doesn't have someone in their life or has not had a personal experience of hell with our health industry. That's what I think. So, I mean, I agree that the media is skewed, but I don't think it's going to save them.
And I told you I was right about Justin, but at the end of the day, what you have to remember is we have tried for years and years and years, including what should have been Bernie Sanders as the president of the United States in 2016. And I'm not saying he would have solved the problem, but I'm telling you, Bernie Sanders, especially in 2016, would have prioritized some form of a single payer Medicare for all expansion system within his first 100 days. That would have been one of his priorities as president. And so we have tried every single legal way to try to wake up this nation that we are the only developed country in the world, which is a fact, that does not have some form of a single payer system.
Universal healthcare system.
We're the only one. And so if you expect that people are just going to sit idly by, and it's 70,000 on paper, it's probably a substantially higher number than that of people that spit the bit every year and die as a result of not having proper health care. Or if that's not enough, going bankrupt as a result. So you're telling me that people are going to be surprised in any way that if we don't get single payer in the near future, that there's going to be another Mangione out there? Why do you think all these healthcare CEOs, as I'm sure you have reported, Jordan, many a times, they all have armored guard now? They're not able to go out in public because they understand that. And the only type of people that would need to do that is if they know what they're doing is wrong. If what they were doing was right, they would have no reason to be, because, it's a vigilante, crazy person. They know what they're doing is effed up and completely devoid of any rationale because they make money off of people's suffering. That's how you make money in health, in pro health. And that's what's going on. So to suggest that, it's so terrible, this and that, trust me, you're lucky it's not happening every day, because we're at that point where I'm surprised it isn't.
Yeah, I think there's something bigger even going on right now. Obviously, the freak out, the meltdown right now is against President Musk, Vice President Trump. I say that meaning it because Trump's not the president. He's handed it over to Musk. But I do think you're seeing the freak out against Trump, but you're also seeing even MSNBC loving liberals pissed off at the Democratic Party too. And I think really the true reason that the government won't give people health care, it's not simply because they're in service of their donors, big pharma, for-profit health insurance industry. I don't think they want to give that major safety net of health care to the masses, because look what happens in places like France when you have basic safety nets in place. The leverage that the bosses and the capitalist class has over the proletariat, it's pulled back because people don't need to stay chained to desks in jobs that they hate for healthcare. People can protest more. People have a little bit more freedom of movement in their careers because you have healthcare as a right. And I think that obviously people need healthcare, but I think it's also about this is a fight against capitalism, because that to me is the main reason they don't want to give healthcare. I mean, just dollars and cents. It never made sense to have this private health insurance industry. I mean, there's been plenty of studies that single payer would save the government money. But I think if the Luigi case goes to trial, I really think that those themes, it's going to be a melding of the Bernie movement and I think Occupy a little bit because I think this is really about capitalism, and the capitalist class does not want you to have that bedrock of a social safety net.
Agree 100%. Austerity politics is why you, myself, Jen, and obviously Mr. Grumbine, we try to get the message out there as much as we can. And look, Jen was highlighting the other day, and she did it to Keaton when we were on with him, that while Shama and Jill and obviously Chris Hedges are right, they still have a tendency to make the incorrect presumptions regarding how our money is actually spent, that we actually spend first and tax second.
Correct.
This idea that we tax first and spend second, that's not how it works. And so continuing to make that egregious error is a big problem. And
Thank you. You didn't seem to defend me that much the other day.
No, I'm saying that there are elements of MMT that I don't agree with, but the basic parameters of MMT are correct. Like to even deny that it's incorrect is just living in fantasy land, much like, since you're here, you're going to have to stick around for one small segment, and why wouldn't you? Javier Milei,
don't mind me eating my dinner.
Javier Milei is proving that if you think austerity politics works, you're a fucking idiot. Like, with all due respect, because I understand that people think you could just austerity your way into prosperity, no matter how many people have to suffer as a result. But you have the president of Argentina who was peddling a meme coin, a pump and dump scheme that you could see from 10,000 miles away if you actually had your eyes open. And instead, what does he do? He goes to CPAC this weekend with his hero, Elon Musk. And this is the shit that was going on.
Hi, my friend! Hi, how you doing?
Good, how's it going? Hey.
I have a bracelet for you.
Thanks.
On the day I was born, the nurses all gathered right on.
Well, that's cool.
This man has never used a friggin' power tool in his fucking life.
I'm sorry. Am I the only one a little unsettled that like a 5-year-old girl was right next to him holding a chainsaw?
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, why is that? Why is that?
Is there a blade on it?
Oh, that's real. That's a real chainsaw.
No, I understand it's real, but is there actually a blade on that?
It sure looks like it.
Okay. I don't know. I'm just saying, but he's a moron. Why do people think that wealth and Asperger's equals genius?
I don't know, but there seem to be caretakers around there that just like, I don't know if that's Elon's daughter or some other.
Well, he's got like 12 kids with a bunch of different baby mamas. So who knows? And he's been like, flailing them around when my understanding is he's been ignoring them the rest of the time. So,
well, there was a little clip of him apparently when he was about to get on stage at CPAC, right before he held up that big chainsaw. Apparently his kid was there and he was like 5 or 6 steps in front of his child. It's so.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but journalistically, I need to say it did come out that was selectively edited. He did turn around for his kid. Yeah.
Okay. No, my apologies. And listen,
what did he do? He turned around and did what?
So there was a clip going around that there was a clip going around that he was walking onto the CPAC stage and he just like abandoned his kid and let his kid wander behind him. But it was chopped up. The full clip, he did turn around and get his kid.
Yeah. I mean, well, now he just, wielded a chainsaw around another. So,
Right.
I guess,
But
there's some
as
good parenting and bad.
As he was wielding that chainsaw, his ex, Grimes, I think her name is, was posting on X trying to get a hold of him because their kid had a medical emergency, and apparently Musk has been ghosting her. Wow.
Again, like I said, I have heard not such, and again, I don't know, and I really don't care. He's such a douche canoe, people. Seriously. Like, he is the worst. He is now, like, every time I see him now, I remember the guy from Don't Look Up. You remember the oligarch, and that's who I'm thinking of. Like, he's not really saying anything. He just has money and is on the spectrum. And so people somehow equate that with genius. I don't understand.
The bigger problem here is the fact that Milei actually was pushing this meme coin that ended up being a complete pump and dump scheme, which happened so quickly. And yet, despite that, these guys show up at CPAC. Trump is totally talking about what a great guy Javier is, and he doesn't do anything wrong. I don't know how long this whole, tech bro, austerity bro type of love fest, if you will, is going to last. I don't think it's going to last very long. At least it doesn't appear that it's going to be so blatant in how you go about doing this. And I'm not saying that we don't have a serious bureaucratic, corrupt system in this country. We do. But we've gotten to the point where, because we didn't deal with it, you've now allowed the richest man on paper in the world to basically just run roughshod over our system. And
wait, can you address, though, Peter, like, you're talking about the breakup of Musk and Trump? Is that what you're talking? Because I want to address how I think we should be handling that. And you and I have talked about this. Guys, I want to have sort of like some sort of betting situation. Which of these two couples will break up first? Will it be Trump Musk, or will it be Taylor and Travis? And this is what I think we should be following. Which one of those two couples will break up first?
If we're turning into a TMZ,
but it is interesting. You got to think. I mean, look, we are a TMZ. This country is absurd. We are the Hunger Games. This is off the wall.
Look, despite all of the, despite the gestures and the posing, and apparently Steve Bannon at CPAC did a Hitler salute. And so all the gestures aside, it's really a question of, if people are going to be suffering in their wallets and they don't have health care and all the things that they supposedly assume we're going to improve with Trump in the White House, I just don't think there's going to be a lot of patience. There was very little patience for Biden. There, of course, was no patience for Harris. And now that Trump is back and people were claiming that the economy was technically better when he was in the White House, well, what's going to improve? And I already know for a fact in my line of work, interest rates are not coming down. And one of the biggest reasons they're not coming down is because, while on the one hand, you may agree with the concept of Doge and what it actually stands for, here's something a lot of people don't know. Doge, its original incarnation, was created under Obama. So this is something that's been sitting on the shelf for a while, and somebody finally decided to make use of it, calling it Doge and making it a meme, if you will, at the same time. But he's moving at such breakneck speed that people are freaking out. They don't know what to think. So I don't know. I think that it's a short-term marriage for the most part. But if you're going to be so blatantly criminal, as Javier Milei clearly is, with peddling a meme coin, which was clearly a way for his rich buddies to make money, like any other freaking coin is created to do so. I don't know how long people are going to want to put up with this. I don't.
I think a lot of people are not forgetting, but it's not being discussed enough. Trump has no loyalty to anyone, but his short-term loyalty, his short-term romance, he does respect people with money. He loves people who are, rich and successful, because it makes him feel richer than he actually is. And there is a track record of pay for play with Trump, at least in the short term. Sheldon Adelson, when he was alive, the big Republican money man, gave him at the time $30 million to his 2016 campaign. And in return, Trump moved the embassy, the Israeli embassy, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Musk gave him $300 million I mean, that's a ton. And frankly, when Biden dropped out, there was a short period where I think Kamala Harris had a shot. She ruined her campaign, which is a whole nother story. But for Donald Trump, potentially has Elon Musk to thank for keeping him out of jail. Because I think if he would have lost, he was facing a conviction, at least in one of the cases. Whether it would have been jail or not, who knows? So I think, Trump, whatever. Trump, you could give Trump a kidney today and him throw you out the garbage tomorrow. But I do think there's a grace period where Trump is going to give Elon room and rope, because Elon basically helped him win the presidency, get all his cases tossed. But I think the problem is, as much as Trump is playing it cool, he does not like sharing the headlines. And Elon is monopolizing the headlines.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Also, Elon is pissing off the few sane professional people in Trump's operation. His chief of staff, Susie Wiles, she is was a lobbyist. She's corrupt, but she's one of the more professional of the corrupt in Trump's, zoo. She is very big on chain of command. She doesn't like Elon sending out emails, give me your 5 bullets or you're fired. And I don't think it's a coincidence that, as I reported on the live stream earlier today, the Trump administration rescinded that. They told agency heads, ignore Elon's email. So I think the few professional people around Trump are going to be pushing him, enough with Elon, because at a certain point, you do need people in the government for it to run. And Elon was planning on, how is he going to respond to all those emails with the 5 bullet points? AI. Well, go ask healthcare recipients on United Healthcare. They used AI at a 90% error rate to deny claims. So you want the judge of who stays and who goes of government workers to be AI? It's absurd. So I do think the honeymoon will last a little longer, but Trump is eventually going to kick him to the curb, just like he kicked Bannon to the curb and many other people, because Elon's sharing the headlines or monopolizing the headlines way too much. And in the reverse, Elon doesn't want to play second fiddle to anyone either. He likes being the center of attention. And I think, no disrespect, mental illness is real. There's definitely a mania going on here. He doesn't sleep.
You think there's some sort of problem with this?
Well, it's been reported he's manic. I don't know if it's ketamine infused or he's got a mental illness. Bipolar is a real thing, but he seems manic to me. I've known people in my life that have that, and he seems very impulsive, reckless. He doesn't sleep. He takes ketamine, which, whatever, that's fine, but everything in the right dose. And he does very impulsive things. So I think the honeymoon's not going to last. But let's not forget, there's going to be real damage done here because we're already seeing it. We're already seeing people, and by the way, it's not a small percentage of Americans that work for the government, not just the federal level. You could work for the federal government, not in Washington, D.C. Be a federal. So large portions of America work for the government. And even if things are paused or delayed or services before, whatever fuck ups they did by pausing services, pausing programs, canceling programs, even in the short term, before they reverse it and restore things, I mean, people live paycheck to paycheck in this country.
Yeah.
So it could really cause a lot of damage.
All right. I have to address it. Metal. You are, and this is someone who's a regular, so I'm trying to help you see this. You need to see the forest through the trees. You're being distracted by the shiny object. It isn't about those little things about the wasteful spending and those little tidbits of things. Until they go after the Pentagon, it's a waste of everybody's time. So that is where the most wasteful spending is. All of these things are little red herrings that they're throwing at you to distract you. You've got to see the forest through the trees, man. I'm begging you. All right.
And he is going to go after the Pentagon, but he's not going to go after it the way that he needs to. If he's going to fire a few thousand employees from the Pentagon,
not the contract. He's not going to deal with the
contract.
You're
not eliminating the multi-billion over billions of dollars in contracts that go through Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, General Dynamics, Boeing, and the list goes on, that it doesn't matter. Because where is the fraud, waste, and abuse coming from? you had the Secretary of Defense on September 10th, 2001 say, and I quote, "We have over $2 trillion in unaccounted money at the Pentagon." That's 2001. So a lot's changed since then. And
they're just putting those things up to distract you from what they're really doing, Metal. That's not where we need to be worried about. Stop scapegoating. That's punching down. It's silly. That's not where the problem is.
And by the way, before I go, because I got a bit to do, I will say, Meryl and anyone else,
Metal. It's metalopoly. It's metalopoly.
Metal, and not just the Pentagon. We spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year in free money, subsidies to Wall Street, the fossil fuel industry, big pharma, Silicon Valley, i.e. Elon Musk, big agriculture. I mean, the list goes on. The government gives free money, treat it like monopoly money.
Who's the biggest welfare queen in the country?
So I don't hear any of you waste, fraud, and abuse cheerleaders saying, why don't we cut when the oil companies were price gouging? They still are, but not as much as they were in 2021, 2022. And gas in California was $8 a gallon. And on the East Coast, it was near $5 a gallon. Biden sent sternly worded letters asking the fossil fuel executives, lower those prices. He could have said, you don't lower those prices by Friday, I'm pulling your $15 billion in free money we give you, the fossil fuel industry, a year. You know who did that? In 1962, JFK told U.S. Steel that was price gouging, go fuck yourself. We're yanking the contracts for the submarines, and I'm going to give it to your competitors who aren't price gouging. And U.S. Steel buckled very quickly. And then the CIA killed JFK, but that's a different thing. So the point is, we give a lot of free money, way more waste than you will find in the Department of Education. What's the one that they're cutting all the foreign aid to?
USAID.
USAID. There is way more fraud and waste in the free money we give to all the special interests than USAID. And there's fraud and waste everywhere. That's just the nature of government. And I'm for going after it. But like Jen said, you're missing the forest for the trees if you're not looking at the Pentagon, and corporate welfare is way more than like welfare that actually helps poor, hungry people.
Well, who's the biggest welfare queen in this country? I'm pretty sure it's Elon Musk.
Oh, absolutely. He just got $400 million last week for armored Teslas as he's lecturing about waste, fraud, and abuse.
Are people not noticing these cyber trucks are garbage and people are having problems? Like these people are the laughing stock of the world. Please come for my sandwich board business. I will make you a sign announcing your douche canoodum without you having to spend that kind of money on a cyber truck. I promise you, I'll do it cheaper.
Can I just say something? Because this really irritates me.
Yeah.
And I mean, people that watch Status Quo, I'm not, I actually voted for Jill Stein, but I'm no cheerleader of Democrats. But you got to call a spade a spade. If Obama appointed Bill Gates or George Soros or name your big Democratic donor to be the head of a lemonade stand, Fox News would be calling for the death penalty.
Traitor.
Yeah, they'd be calling for Obama's immediate impeachment and hearings and criminal trials because he appointed unelected whomever.
And they're foreign as is Musk.
Right.
It's like you literally have a foreign unelected person.
All these MAGA heads called Obama a king and a dictator because he did executive actions. I mean, Trump did more executive actions before breakfast on day one than anyone else. But because it's your guy, red team, you're blind, blinders, see nothing. So that's why politics, it's becoming really, really like a tribal sport. You got to take your blinders off and just say, yeah, waste, fraud, and abuse is good, but isn't the bigger problem that a study came out last week in all places, Politico published it, finding that our real unemployment is close to 25%? Let me repeat, real unemployment close to 25%. You know what unemployment was during the Great Depression? 25%.
So we're in bad shape. Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to focus on fraud at USAID and the Department of Education. Meanwhile, real unemployment, that's part-time, gig work, is 25%. So cheer on Trump while the soup lines are starting.
We have to coalesce around a workers' agenda. That's what it's about. Guys, if you're not currently subscribed to Status Coup, please make sure.
Of course they are.
Well, you never know. There could be a few outstanding individuals.
Okay.
We're very close to hiring another reporter. So please, if you can, sign up, statuscoup.com/join.
We're already part of it, and we will continue to push it. Thank you, brother, for always doing what you do, and we will be talking.
Thank you, Jordan.
Have a good night.
You too. So, without further ado, and we do apologize for keeping our esteemed guest waiting. I know he rushed home this evening.
Oh no! I feel
bad,
and it's a candidate, right? I
of
feel bad.
course it
I
is,
empathize.
but he's also a friend.
I empathize.
Well, we're gonna hear from the other side of the coin now. He is not only somebody who is a man about town. That's not what he's running for, Jen. That is
but Chris Garrett asked me to show off my T-shirt.
Okay.
So I just stood up. Jeez, Louise, my God.
He is running to be the next mayor of Panama City, a city that is a lot of fun if you haven't been there. And it's got that nice small town feel and hell of a lot of beautiful sightlines and a lot of good seafood, I might add. And of course, I personally am supporting him to be the next mayor of Panama City. Allan Branch, welcome to Generational Change.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hi, it's nice to meet you. Oh, you're a musician.
Oh, no, don't be fooled.
Oh, okay. That's fake.
That guitar has dust on it.
Okay, but you could be a musician.
I mean, I've taken guitar lessons for like 15 years, but I do not call myself a musician, no.
Okay, I can appreciate that because I'm like a wannabe artist, so I kind of understand where you're coming from.
Yeah,
okay, cool. Well, it's nice to meet you. I've never been to Panama City, and I am a second-generation native Floridian.
Oh.
And for people who don't know, that's a long drive from where I am.
It is.
I'm in Broward. So
yeah, that's 10 hours probably.
Far. Yeah, it's far. So talk about what is it like up in Panama City? What's your demographics like? What's your town like? Like, what's going on up there?
So they call this whole panhandle, Florida's like an L, like an upside down reversed L. And they call it LA, Lower Alabama, because we're mostly Republican here. And we're kind of like just the Southern Alabama kind of area. We're like an hour 15 from Tallahassee, the capital. There's 183,000 people or 88,000 people in our county. Our little city, or the county seat, it's 38,000 people. So we're a small town. So, mayor is a part-time position, really. It's not a full-time position. It could be if you want it to be. It's a weak mayor system, which means you don't control the city. You're really the head of the board, and you're a commissioner at large.
So you have a city manager.
We do.
Okay.
And it's a nonpartisan race, but we're mostly Republican here. So to get elected here, you really need to be Republican. I think it's like 20%. It's like 30% independent, 60 or 50% Republican. The rest are Democrat. So very, very heavy red here. And nice small town. We're on a beautiful bay, hardworking, salt of the earth people. Mostly military. We have Air Force Base, Navy Base, and tourism. That's really how we make money.
Okay, so what happens there? This is my question as to whether or not I would ever go somewhere like this. What happens there at spring break?
Well, they've killed off spring break. So you look at the pattern
now
of like,
I would go there. Okay,
yeah,
so
like Daytona Beach has kind of killed it off. And
good.
They kind of found that spring break, although you can make really good money from it, it kind of deters families and people who spend money and they want a safe place. And they even have a thing called 100 milers, which is a term that came from Texas, I believe, of drug dealers coming from 100 miles around, not just spring breakers. So you think about spring breakers that are party, but you have people there to do nefarious things who come as vendors, if you think about it.
Oh.
When I was a kid, spring break was awesome. So I graduated in 1999 from high school. That was peak MTV, WWF. It was awesome.
Are you from there? Are you from up there?
Born and raised, yeah.
Okay.
I got out for college and came back with my wife and one of our children. But spring break, there was no cell phones. And kind of to set the stage, most of my friends worked for 1-800-COLLECT.
I remember that.
Oh, yeah. So that dates you. If you remember 1-800-COLLECT, they were passing out temporary tattoos. and bumper stickers and T-shirts.
Well, you and Peter are the same generation. I actually remember spring break Fort Lauderdale, and that was a whole different animal. But now as an adult, I'm kind of grumpy and curmudgeonly, and I don't like that nonsense. So I'm not big on those kinds of spots.
Well, I think once you become an adult and have responsibilities, one of the things you learn, which is the biggest deterrence when it comes to spring break, particularly if you're in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, and North Florida, Panama City has always had the reputation of being the spring break spot in Florida, in the northern part of the state.
Yeah.
The people that come there and spend money, they spend it, but then they kind of wreck as much as they provide. And so if you're thinking about why spring break is a deterrent for a lot of people, it's because the people that are there partying don't actually care about the area. It's of no concern to them.
Yeah, it's cheap drinks, beer funnels, wet T-shirt contests.
And they cram a bunch of kids in a room. It really isn't the best. But the thing is, for me, like, I'm neurotic. I don't want to see people doing stupid, dangerous shit around me. I just don't. If you're going to go do stupid, dangerous shit, that's fine. I don't want to see it. I'll tell people do that, not in front of my house. I don't want to have to take anyone to the emergency room.
I think what you're saying is you're a party pooper.
No, I'm not a party pooper. I just don't want to see it. I am all for all the partying. I will put myself in another situation. I have no judgment. I just don't want to have to take someone to the emergency room. Because that'll ruin my trip.
Totally. That's how I travel now. When I was 18 through 22, I was looking for the chaos.
Well, Allan, you youngins.
Allan, as you and I had talked when we met in Panama City, I mentioned that Jen had run for Congress in the Democratic primary against the devil herself, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And one of the things that we experienced over the last few years is we were both at the time residents of a town called Plantation, and we helped out a gentleman by the name of Nick Sortel, who ran for mayor of the town. And the one thing that we noticed, because we did do some door knocking for him over the course of the campaign, is that once you remove the D and the R from the name, you can pretty much get as vote blue no matter who, or as red a voter as possible the second you remove the label. Once the label is gone, people actually want to know what you stand for, what you're fighting for. And if you could talk about the value of, when you think about how divided our country is right now, and the importance of local politics and how nonpartisan races really is the key to breaking that divide, we'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, my family, my family's been building businesses. We're one of the longest entrepreneurial families in the county, continual. Grandparents moved here in the 40s and started restaurants that still exist here that are run by my cousins. And car washes, and we had them across the Panhandle. And when my
you got to put the link in the description, because now I'm going to have to go. All right,
like car hops, like roller skates and that kind of things. What we
okay, I got to go there now.
And when we when branches gather together, we don't talk about sports. We really don't even talk about politics that much. And so growing up, we talk about businesses, is what we talk about, organizations. But growing up, the first memory I had of politics was in like 1991 when my parents started talking about Ross Perot. And they thought Ross Perot's going to save America. He's got these graphs and he's a businessman. He understands this. And I remember even holding signs and waving bumper stickers around our Astro van. And that's what we talked about. And so we had these really candid we were homeschoolers for one. And we had these very candid conversations. I remember being 9 years old and my parents talking about how they're going to build another car wash using the equity that we have in our home. And if this doesn't work, the bank is going to take our home. And so after dinner, when we would have our dinner, we would go and we would actually go work at the self-serve car wash and clean it up about 8:30 at night. But we knew why we were doing it. And so my parents have always had sort of a higher lens of scrutiny on decisions because we've been in entrepreneurship so long. And then really my parents vote independent typically. And I was registered independent actually for a long time. And I switched to Republican here locally about, I'd say 8 years ago. And one of the friction points we have locally is I'm really not as right as a lot of the Republicans want me to be. I'm really more right-centered. And, the sort of foundation of American politics was built. The farmer comes off the field with the wisdom of the field into government. And to serve and not make money, it was a service. You were at servitude. It was hard. You lost money. And we've kind of gone away from that. And I think listening to some of your points previously, there's so much confusion, and we don't know how any of our money is spent. And we're looking for, politicians. I'm seeing it now. They run on these points because they're distilling down larger conversations, and it always ends up with transparency, fiscal responsibility. It's all the same things, but transparency doesn't necessarily mean releasing. I mean, it's great to release all of the financials, but if you don't understand them as a citizen, it doesn't matter. It's still not transparent. And so you're seeing cities now move to better budgeting explanations and understandability. And I think that's what you're seeing maybe a little bit at the federal level. But my parents have always sort of voted independent, and we've kind of, I've supported Ron Paul. And I think, I was real hopeful that Ron Paul would bring some sort of radical change. Maybe not as radical as we're seeing it now, maybe a little slower surgical cuts. We're seeing a little fast and wild right now that makes a lot of people nervous. A lot of people are excited, though. And so, I don't know, politics is super divisive now. At the local level, you are able to talk about issues more. They still look up which party you're registered to.
Yes.
And so,
they will hold it against, some people will hold it against you.
100%. And even though this is a nonpartisan race, the last time the local Republicans actually endorsed a candidate, and they're not supposed to do that. And so I agree. The two-party system, to me, often seems to get in the way of a real conversation, which is what we need
all
to
the
have.
time.
We don't speak to each other like neighbors anymore. I don't think Facebook helps that. And Twitter certainly doesn't either. But we're certainly in a very divisive time, making bold changes all over government.
What would you say is some of the important issues? Because obviously there is an incumbent mayor right now, and there's got to be some motivating factors for you to run. What are some of the key issues that are of concern that you would be looking to change should you get into the mayor's seat?
Yeah, well, when you bring politics down to the local level, this is a tiny little town. I mean, it's 38,000 people, and which means your mayor's part-time. Your mayor typically, they get paid $40,000 a year. This is not a job. We want these qualities locally. We want someone who's young, with business acumen, lots of time to spend, but we're going to pay them $40,000, and you're going to be scrutinized, and all the skeletons are going to come out. We're going to call you terrible things. Who in the world would do that job? That is crazy. And so there's so much misinformation too. So what I'm hoping I can do is, for one, this is not really a campaign topic, but I want to humanize this position. I'm not a perfect person. I got 2 kids. I make mistakes.
That was a mistake. That was your first mistake, was having the 2 kids. Is that what you're saying?
I feel like that sometimes. I have a 16-year-old and 18-year-old.
I have 2. Wait, how old are yours?
16 and 18.
Okay, so I have 24 and 18.
Oof, yeah, so you're just a little bit ahead.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little older, but and you're only as happy as your least happy child. And when you have teenagers, they're miserable. I didn't like teenagers when I was a teenager, and I haven't become more fond of them as I've gotten older.
Yeah, they are. But my experiences in small towns are your elected officials typically campaign on fixing roads and parks and lower taxes, but they really don't understand how to do that, because they either haven't been in business or they don't study other cities. And so I've made a lot of contacts. The mayor of Pensacola, Florida is a friend of mine. The mayor of Greenville, South Carolina is a friend of mine. He actually donated to the campaign. And these are cities that are famous for how they've turned their towns around. And so, I don't know, I'm following this position like I would with a business. And I ask a lot of questions. I call cities and I say, how do you do this? And I've also seen here locally, my family's been here for 80 years and owned business for 80 years. And it feels impossible for me to get a building permit. It feels impossible to open a business. And I've had to get rules changed. I've had to hire attorneys from other cities to help me here. And my thing is, if it feels impossible for me, it is impossible for someone without connections and time and have realistic expectations. And we don't have a vibrant city by accident. And you don't have a vibrant city with only a handful of people can navigate the systems. It's impossible to open a business here on part-time efforts using money you've saved. I can almost guarantee, because it was almost impossible for me with millions of dollars from selling software companies to open a brewery here that they wanted to have. And so those are all the things that I want to fix. There's understanding the budget, fixing the permitting process. No one should be scared when they receive a code enforcement letter. Let's start there. When I build a customer support team, part of the training is you don't send an email that you would send to a customer that you wouldn't send to your own mother. If your mother had a question, how would you reply to her? And so that level of customer support training, I don't think happens a lot of times at the city level. And you create this toxic environment where it's hard to hire people. cities are just like any other organizations, money in, money out. They're a little clumsier, but it's the same sort of customer service processes, documenting processes that any organization needs to have. So to me, it's, I build software companies, I'm breweries as well, and a wedding venue. And so I get excited the more I dig into it because, we're not a big city. These are not overly complicated issues. It's just customer service and it's processes. And that's what I do. So,
okay. So let me ask you this. What's it like up there in terms of what we call overdevelopment, where the developers basically it's nonstop? Every commissioner is on the take from some developer somewhere. They're not only are they overbuilding, they're cutting corners. Like, this is absurd. They don't do their ecological repair that they're supposed to do. They're supposed to replant what they're supposed. They don't do any of that, and they just keep building and building and building, and it's like it's horrible.
Two things. Sustainability can mean financially. It can mean ecologically too. So sustainable both ways. A lot of times it's hard to regulate good taste. And so a lot of that, when you talk about, like, you have around the coastline, you have a thing called watersheds, which are basically like, if you have a little bayou, past the bayou is a little valley. In Florida, our valleys are like, 3-foot drops. They're not like cliffs like California would have. But a lot of times developers don't understand, if you close that watershed, you're going to have flooding. And we don't really need as many stormwater ponds if you keep your watersheds open. So really smart cities are realizing the importance of watersheds and the importance of prioritizing native species of plants, so bees are happier and things like that. And so, it's sort of like, people don't realize, when you're ignorant to some things, you just don't know what you don't know, right? And so I think that's a part of having a good planning department, is saying, hey, and we're going to, at your certificate of acceptance, we're going to double check that you planted native species plants, because you can't regulate that through the permitting. If you file a permit with a landscaping plan, if you don't check it at the end, they're not going to do it. So I don't know, those kind of things. Tasteful development can happen anywhere. Seaside is actually a really interesting development. It's kind of hoity-toity now, but Seaside, Florida, they do some interesting stuff, even with stormwater ponds. Their stormwater pond, it all goes down to this sort of half circle. If you watch the Truman Show,
we've talked. Peter took a picture of it and sent it to me when he was just there. Yeah.
So you've been there.
Perfect, but yes, it's cute.
Yeah, the half circle of commerce is their little downtown, and that little amphitheater in the middle is actually their stormwater pond. And so it floods when it rains, but you're not having concert when it rains. So it dries itself out, and the next day you can have a concert. And so cities are getting really smart with stormwater ponds. There's a lot of money and grants in stormwater ponds and runoff. And so I love all that stuff. To me,
may I suggest municipal rainwater collection, please?
Ooh, I love that. Yeah.
We had somebody on a while ago who's an expert on this, and we did this whole thing about it. Like, the amount of water that rushes down our roads that goes to nowhere, we could be using that for like up to 60% of our gray water usage. Just so you know, municipal rainwater collection.
And if you want to talk about where conservative America gets it right, where liberal America doesn't get it right, something like municipal rainwater conservation is something that conservative America would be like, yeah, that makes sense, we'll do it. Whereas in liberal America, it's like, oh no, we have to go through this checkpoint.
Liberal places actually regulate whether or not you can collect rainwater. Florida is actually very good about it. We have the ability to do it legally, like that, but people don't do it. And I don't understand, in a place that floods, why would we not collect rainwater and use it? I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Well, for Florida, probably one reason we can dig 6 feet down and hit water. So it's like, we're a giant aquifer, basically.
Exactly.
Now, what I love, one of our breweries, we have this little tiny back area before it goes to the road, which is a little 4 by 50 foot area, and we cut the concrete out and we made a bioswell, which is basically 12 feet of rocks, and so the rain comes off the building, hits that, 4 feet by 50 feet by 12 feet, and the water just disappears into the ground, and so that, as opposed to it running 100 yards that way, it hits the back. And so that costs like $5,000. And so I think people just don't know. Architects don't. So every industry needs this sort of continuing education, and architects don't know how affordable a bioswell is for someone. It's really not that expensive. So I'd love to see how cities encourage more of that. You get whatever you make easy and you encourage.
Yeah.
And so
it's sticks and carrots. I agree. And that's the problem. And it really is. These are policy choices. That's what people have to understand, whether locally or nationally.
Right.
These things are choices, and it's priorities. And one of the things about the places that are the red places and the more conservative places is they do prioritize the environment. The places that that's why I like Sanibel. That's why that's the beach I like. I don't want to go to our beaches here. They're disgusting. You go to the places that are red, and there's a better care for the environment. It's just, and less overdevelopment.
Yeah. They call it the Emerald Coast for a reason. It's absolutely beautiful. And with you handling the east end of the Emerald Coast, I think the city of Panama City will be in really good hands. And guys, if you are so inclined, links will be in the description. Please chip in if you can to Allan's grassroots campaign.
Yeah.
This is very important. And
Okay, Allan, if you win, will you connect me with a good deal at a nice campground on the beach over there, and then I'll come visit?
Anytime you can camp in my
All right,
backyard.
I'm just saying, you've been there a long time. I'm sure you've got connections. Some of those ocean ones are pricey.
They are pricey.
Yeah.
They are for a reason. We can't thank you enough for coming on. That we will clip this and we will send it over to Rona, so that way we can, you can use it for social media, etc. And when is the election? So everybody knows.
Early voting starts April 14th. Elections April 22nd. So it's all about voter turnout.
Always get them out. How many people are in this race against you?
Just one other person. He's 81 years old. He's a former orthopedic surgeon.
Oh, for the love of all that is holy, people, pass the baton. Jesus.
When I'm 81, I will not be doing this. I will be fishing hopefully with grandkids.
Thank you so much, Allan. It was nice to meet you.
You too. Good chat.
Right.
Thanks, Allan. Talk to you, brother. Well, it's true.
This is why local politics are so much better.
Absolutely.
That is why.
But even with local politics, you still have centenarians that still want to continue.
We have it here. You know who these people are. We know.
Yes, but it's still that's well, you had that was the same thing that happened back in 2020 with the gentleman that ran that was still the state attorney's office for over 40 years, and he was like 80 years old. Forgetting his name.
Mike Sachs.
Mike Sachs. Yeah,
he was just a figurehead for a long time. That was ridiculous. But these people in these seats, and this is a problem. I'm not sure if this is something that's everywhere, but in blue places, I shit you not, these people truly believe that they get to choose who gets their seat when they're no longer in it. There is this weird thing amongst Democrats in these blue places where they truly do believe that is their sort of right in that seat, is to bequeath it to who they see fit. And when you interrupt that and you piss them off, it's a whole thing.
I agree. And the overdevelopment factor is a big thing that happens in blue America that doesn't happen nearly as much in red America. And that is something that is an appeal to people. And we definitely agree with you, Phil. Jordan has been doing amazing work and will always be doing amazing work. And so if you are here and you are so inclined, remember, we are a small but mighty channel. We've had a pretty good turnout tonight. I think we got to like 140 live.
Can I show the back of my shirt now? Because the people like the front. So you guys need to see the back of the shirt. Okay.
For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. And as you can see, that looks like Free Palestine to me.
Is it backwards or right?
No, I see it.
Okay.
Looks right. So make sure you get over there, support our channel if you can. The importance of having that message about Free Palestine. And kudos to Jill Stein, who reiterated that point very succinctly.
Can you remember the guy who we got the shirts from?
I don't remember.
You know who I'm talking about? The guy who was sitting behind us at the thing?
Yes. Mo. Yes. Mo Shahida. Yeah.
Okay. Guys, let me tell you something. Every time I meet a Muhammad, it's like such a win for me. Good
That's
grief.
the most common name in the world.
I know. And it's very helpful because it's like Jennifer, so it's like, I kind of feel like when I see somebody in the Muslim community that I can't remember their name, I have like a 50-50 chance that it could be Muhammad.
Thank you very much, David. And if everybody would do that as well, that is also going to help a great deal. So who better to explain why this issue is still top of mind, much like Luigi, the issue of Palestine. There is no ceasefire, despite what people want you to believe, because Israel is still committing mass murder, and they're going to continue to commit mass murder until they've achieved their objective. Can we stop it? That remains to be seen.
What I don't understand is why anybody thinks Israel would ever abide by a ceasefire. That nation has never
have.
We don't honor agreements because we have no honor. They have honor.
Well, like you said, in the long run, they will not survive this.
No,
they won't.
No.
And here's why.
The tragedy of the Palestinians is that they have essentially no international support for a good reason. They don't have wealth, they don't have power, so they don't have rights. That's the way the world works. Your rights correspond to your power and your wealth. Same inside the United States. Shouldn't be surprised to see it. If you're a poor black kid in Roxbury, you don't have the rights of a rich person living in the suburbs, right? Same in the international arena. So the Palestinians, they may get, statements of support, but and nobody's going to do much for them, especially when the U.S. Threatens anyone who might try to do something.
How old is that?
This was from 2014.
Okay.
But
more than 10 years ago.
October 7th. October 7th.
I know.
What's called the national interest turns out to be the interest of dominant domestic forces in U.S. society. So the national interest means the interests of the very rich, major corporations, the ones who set government policy and so on. That's the national interest, and not the population. The population is basically irrelevant. The population often strongly opposes government policy, and they're simply disregarded. Overwhelmingly, people say there should be much higher taxes on the wealthy. What happens? Taxes on the wealthy go down. And it's the same on issue after issue. Right. We do not live in a society in which the public determines policy.
Thank you.
The public's around, but they're basically disregarded unless they force themselves to into the
system. And there it is.
Serious activism.
And
we're at that point. We'll see. And we're at the point where the serious activism hasn't worked. And that's why we're going to the next level. And I understand what Lopez was saying before about, no, I don't want to live in a world of the purge. I don't want that. I wanted Bernie Sanders.
Me too.
We offered the easier way. And I don't want any of this Hunger Game predatory capitalist shit. So unfortunately, violence does beget violence. But here's the thing. The level of violence is always dictated by the oppressor, not the oppressed. You don't tell the people that are revolting how to revolt when every peaceful method has been basically squashed. So that's the problem. So no, I don't want to live in that world, but we do live in that world. So that's where I'm at with it. And I, Noam Chomsky, good and bad, whatever. He's the shit.
Yeah, and he is, and his message has never wavered, and that's why it's so important where you recognize that that's why his statement is so important, being that he's a Jewish man. And there are not as many people within the community that speak up in the capacity that they should.
Certainly not in 2014, we weren't seeing that.
No. So that even shows you just how much more ahead of his time he's really always been. But then again, he's debated James Baldwin. He was on with.
Why would he be debating James Baldwin?
Well, it wasn't really a debate. It was more of just like a philosophical discussion.
Okay, I was going to say I would think they'd be on the same page more than not. I don't know what they would be debating
absolutely.
About.
Yeah. Well, it was Buckley who had them on.
And, wow.
You know how his philosophy goes.
Whatever.
The original austerity man.
Well, I mean, like if I were going to add another person to my muse mix, it would probably be James Baldwin. So it's like, I can't, I wouldn't,
So I know you guys certainly appreciate the statement, if you will, the sort of rationalization, if you want to call it that, as to why we live in a country where bribery is what works, because that's what it is. You could call it 1,000 different things, but when you get right down to it, we live in a system of corporate bribery where the richest of the rich, like the Musks, the Zuckerbergs, the Bezoses, and the Gateses of the world, this is it's amazing how I just said those four names and it wasn't intentional that I was addressing them specifically, but that is exactly who.
So funny.
This is the there's got to be a good Nick, because we can't call them the barbershop quartet. But
it's the brawligarchy.
The brawligarchy quartet.
Well, that was the joke. Was it's like brawligarchs, which is so absurd that we're even having this discussion. Like, it's so ridiculous. But like, this is really, to me, like, I really do feel like I'm watching some sort of combination of World Wrestling and the Hunger Games.
Nobody forgot Soros medal, whether it's George or his son Alex.
We don't like any of them, but these are the 4 that we mostly are talking about in the news medal. We're not forgetting. We brought up Soros earlier.
Imagine
nobody gets a pass here. We don't like any. I don't care what language my oligarchs speak. You could put Putin on there. You could put any of them on there. It's capital is the problem. All right.
Yeah, and there is. And Manwith, I don't know if I agree with you, because I will tell you that if Kamala did win, you probably would see Alex Soros have a pretty prominent, visible position in the Harris administration. Now, certainly not at the level that Elon is involved in, but most people would have known that in excess of probably somewhere between $50 and $100 million, Alex Soros facilitated into Kamala's campaign. Maybe more.
How'd that work out for you? How'd that work out for you, Alex?
Not only that, I mean, people forget, everyone talks about how much money Musk gave to the Trump campaign. Kamala raised triple that amount. So yes, they're all guilty, but it's true. Well, so then, Jen, who is Larry, who is Curly, who's Mo, and who's the Grinch?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
No,
I mean,
who's the I guess.
Well, Bezos is the Grinch.
Now, I would say that Gates is probably Larry. I would say no. Larry is.
What about Shemp?
Shemp. No, I would say that
that was Larry early.
Larry is definitely Zuckerberg. I would say that.
I don't know what you're basing this on. I
would say that. I would say that Musk is Mo, or no, is Curly.
Can I say fundamentally that I've always truly believed that one of the key differences between men and women is whether or not you find the Three Stooges funny, and I think that. Yeah. See, and I it's just so not funny to me.
Well, you don't like stupid humor.
I like some stupid humor, but it still has to be smart. But if you seriously, if you're a female person, biologically or otherwise, in the chat, let me know if you think the Three Stooges was funny. Because I honestly, to me, that's like, my dad loves it. My mom and I can't figure it out. I've never understood it. Jason thinks it's funny. Like, it's just so, I don't get it.
We're going to conclude.
In my experience, it's a stupid man thing.
Well, we're going to conclude on a funny note, because if you want to understand why the system is the way that it is, I was once, if you guys remember, the guy who did the infomercials, his name was Vince, and he would do the slap chop. He would do the shticky. Do you remember?
Wait, what is this from? Wait, what are we doing?
The mid 2000s, I guess. I think that's about how far back it goes.
Oh,
but the guy who played Vince, who did these infomercials for the shticky and for the slap chop, and I think he did a few. I think the ShamWow guy. That's who it is.
You're making me like? Is this like the new incarnation of like George Popeil?
No, God, you sound like you sound like a boomer. You don't even sound like.
I'm going to hang up on you. I'm going to X you out. I'm going to remove you.
So this is a parody of the ShamWow guy, and this.
Thank you, Chris.
This absolutely nails the corruption within our political system.
Hi, Vince here with LobbyWow. I'm going to tell you how you can turn your tens of millions of dollars into literally billions. Here's how. The government hands out money all the time and rules favorably for big business every day. I bet you ask yourself, why am I such a stupid piece of crap? How do I get my hands on some of that sweet, sweet cash? Everything you tried doesn't work. You tried voting, but that never works. You tried calling your senator? I bet you have, you useless piece of crap. What about bribing your congressman? What do you want to go to jail? LobbyWow takes this useless bribe and turns it into a campaign contribution. There's literally nothing democratic about it. It works with drugs, it works with corn, it works with healthcare. So look at this great bowl of beef. What's wrong with it? Too expensive. You gotta sell 100% beef on the open market. Be way more profitable if you could cut it with some kind of cheap filler like you do your cocaine. But hey, that's illegal. All right, take a look at this. You getting this, camera guy? Oh, look at that, those regulations that come right off. No more regulations means I can do whatever I want. Look it, you had your wood pulp, the ammonia, some of the pink slime. Have a little fun. I got some feces here. Look at that. Profit. Sell those extra missiles to the army, even though they didn't ask for them in the first place. Look at this. That's usually a big mess. Not with Lobby Wow. Look at these chumps. You get a great return on investment. It works on both parties. And if you go here right now, because I can't do this all day, you're going to get a sweet briefcase full of hot cash. Lobby Wow. It's going to have you saying, holy shit, I can't believe this is legal.
So I have no idea who that guy was. I mean, obviously that's who you were talking about from before, but that was really funny.
So for anybody who's seen the ShamWow commercial, that's who's being mimicked there. But my God, if that is not
so funny,
well, as Orlando says, that was epic, and it was. That's exactly what it was.
Funny.
And that's what our government is. It's basically, it's just legalized form of bribery, but it's still bribery. You're not taking the word bribery out of the equation. You're saying clear as day that this is how it works. This is what we do. Now, have people had enough yet? As Noam Chomsky said in the clip, he basically said, well, until there is real activism in the streets that is relentless, you're kind of stuck.
And that we have seen over and over isn't working.
No. So what's next?
Well,
a bunch of Mangiones, because that's where we're heading. That's what's going to happen. And you know who we're going to talk about that with next, guys?
Oh, shit. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Whatever critter is in that studio, Jen.
It's Enoch, and he has grown very big.
Oh, well, you wanted him as a pet.
I did not want him as a pet. He came with the house.
Is he as big as an alligator?
Lizard. I'm keeping my feet up. He's a lizard, but I honestly could freaking be an alligator. No, I don't scream from deer. That thing is so big. Oh my God. But I heard it rustling around.
Anyway,
sorry. I'm sorry. If you were here, I would have been in your lap. Oh my God.
I'm sure that the lizard meant no harm.
I'm calling Jason to come help me.
God, you're such a...
There's no lizards where I go camping.
Now, is it the size of an iguana?
No, but it's getting there. This is actually, they're curly-tailed lizards is what they are, and they get sizable. And this one's been living here since we got this house, so he's sizable.
Cat thought it was a spider.
No, I wouldn't scream from a spider. This thing, because I heard it rustling around, and it's so big that you see it run by. It's not like a little lizard. It's not like a little gecko or a cute little no. I'm freaking out. He's staring me down. Oh my God.
Are you saving 50% or more on your car insurance? Is that why you were so excited?
I'm freaking out.
Oh, Jen, no, Michelle has it best. He's here for the rent. If you are going to tune in with us on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will have Butch Ware, candidate for governor of California, the Green Party candidate for California governor. So you come here on Thursday and you stick around because it's going to be a great conversation. Am I right? They actually want you to show.
Are you kidding me? I'm freaking out. He's coming over here. There's nowhere to go, fucking Enoch. Where are you coming? Jason, I'm freaking out. Get the fucking lizard. He's down there. He's freaking me out. He's coming closer. He went away. Now he's back there. It's Enoch, and he's huge.
Seriously?
I'm freaking out.
Maybe we should go off the air.
He's big.
I know he's big.
I don't know. I'm not touching him.
Okay, well, you're very fucking helpful.
He's gonna just have to be here.
No, he can't be here.
Dude, he's enormous.
I know he's enormous.
He can take off a finger.
I'm not. Jesus. Can you get him to go somewhere else?
And you thought it was a great idea to keep him as a house pet.
He's not a house pet.
He's big.
I know he's big. Stop saying he's big. I'm walking to the other side.
Come on, buddy.
Don't say come on, buddy.
Let's get out of here. Oh my God, that thing's 6 inches.
The little critter, the little Geico critter, has grown into a man.
He really has gotten big.
Oh. I know what I said.
Yeah, don't touch. That's.
Let me know when he's gone.
If you guys like this wholesome content where we house lizards in our studio, make sure you go over to patreon.com/generational change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty and entertaining channel, which is what we try to do. We try to keep things entertaining. It's just yeah.
He's behind the bookcase. He's good.
No.
He'll be fine.
I'm not fine.
He's cool. Just keep your feet off the floor.
And to think, the only thing I was ever concerned about was a wasp queen in the summer that was swirling around the light fixture in the studio. Now, that was something that needed to be dealt with because that. Oh, look who's here!
I brought my emotional support animal.
Lulu,
freaking out. All right.
Lulu.
What? Lou, look, it's Peter. Look, it's Peter. You know she's blind in one eye anyway. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Lulu.
She hears you, but she doesn't know where she's looking.
I'm over here, Lou.
She
Look
doesn't
straight
watch
ahead.
TV. I don't have a dog that some dogs watch TV. Mine don't. Okay. I've got my emotional support pet. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, wait. You're so terrified of a lizard, but yet you gave him a name.
He wasn't this big when we started. I'm telling
he
you,
was
he's been
pretty
living
small.
here for he's been living here since we bought this place. And
Yeah,
it
that is
wasn't
kind
right
of-
for me to kick him out of his home. I'm
It's
trying
kind
to
of
respect
amazing
him.
they
I
lived
just
that
want
long.
him to not be out when I'm here. I'm only in here twice a week.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Now you've got everyone going with the jokes now because Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, you're giving a lot of men hope, Jen.
Brett, I'm married to a urologist.
Snip.
I know these things.
Snip, snip, snip. So, with that said, we really do appreciate you being here. Make sure that you smash that like button.
Did
Make
you
sure
run our patrons?
I already did, long time
Okay,
ago.
thank you.
We will have a very interesting Bezos-related story on Thursday.
Donald James, if I shave this dog, not only would she look skinny, she'd look like roadkill. This dog, no offense. This dog, yes. This dog is like seriously the ugliest dog you've ever seen wet in your whole life. Like she seriously looks like something that you killed. So no, she doesn't want to be shaved.
So on Thursday, we are going to talk about a very interesting Florida-related story. So Colin, make sure to save that clip of Florida workers as it relates to Bezos. And another reason why the story will change significantly in a few days is because Governor DeSantis came out today and is welcoming Doge to the great state of Florida. So see a lot of that wonderful activity that's going to take place.
Doge.
It's
so lame. Like, honestly,
Doge.
He's so pathetic, Elon.
Well,
I'm not evicting him. I'm simply saying that when I'm in here and I'm live and the lights are on, that's not his time. There's plenty of little crevices in here. I cannot tell you, plenty for him to just stay put during the live. All right?
Understood. So again, smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We are speaking with Butch Ware, candidate for governor of the Green Party in California, on Thursday. We'll see you then.